I discovered the unthinkable truth like a crack in my foundation. Something I thought solid, now irreparably broken by betrayal. My name is Everett Harwick, and I'm 32 years old. Each morning, I wake in my own home again, drink black coffee on the porch, and remember what they tried to take from me. Sheriff Clay Maddox, our county's top lawman, and my wife, Connie Harwick's secret lover, thought his badge could erase me. Connie believed her tears would wash away the evidence. Together, they built a case of lies while dismantling everything I'd worked for. The pain cut deeper than any engine belt across knuckles. But unlike an injury, this one gave me clarity, cold and sharp as winter air. If you've ever watched someone turn your truth into their lie, you understand. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. I stood at the stove stirring pasta, watching steam fog up the kitchen window. The clock above the fridge read 7:38, almost 2 hours after Connie usually got home from the county assessor's office. The red sauce bubbled and popped, spattering tiny dots across the white stovetop, like warning signs I should have read sooner. The front door clicked open just as I was draining the pasta. "Sorry I'm late," Connie called out, the familiar jingle of her purse hitting the hall table reaching my ears. "Work ran long." She breezed into the kitchen, blonde hair slightly windblown, lipstick freshly applied. I nodded, keeping my eyes on the colander as steam rose between us. "You're just in time," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Pasta's ready." She moved past me to the fridge, the scent following her hitting me like a punch to the gut. It wasn't her perfume, the floral one I'd given her last Christmas. This was something muskier, sharper, a man's cologne. "How was work?" I asked, watching her pour herself a glass of white wine. "Boring. Tax season paperwork." She took a long sip, not meeting my eyes. "I'm going to change before dinner." I set the pasta down and turned to face her. "Whose cologne is that?" Her eyes flicked up, then away. "What?" "The cologne. I can smell it on you." "Don't be ridiculous, Everett." Her laugh was too high, too quick. "It's probably just the new air freshener in the office." "Funny thing about that cologne," I continued, keeping my voice level. "It's the same scent I noticed on our truck seats last week." I reached for my phone on the counter, pulled up the banking app. "Also funny how there's been $600 in cash withdrawals this month. Always on your lunch breaks." Her face hardened. "Are you tracking my spending now?" "I'm trying to understand why our truck was parked outside the Cedar Pines Inn yesterday when you said you were at your mother's." The wine glass froze halfway to her mouth. "You're following me?" "I drove by your mother's to drop off that casserole dish. You weren't there." I kept my voice steady, even as my heart hammered against my ribs. "So I checked a hunch. Guess whose cruiser was also at the Cedar Pines?" The glass came down hard on the counter. "You're being paranoid." "Am I? Because what I think is happening is you're sleeping with Sheriff Maddox." Her eyes went wide, not with shock or guilt, but with something calculated. She took 3 steps back from me, reaching for her phone in her pocket. "What are you doing?" I asked. Without answering, she dialed. Her eyes never left mine as she spoke into the phone, voice trembling in a way I'd never heard before. "Clay? It's me. He's escalating. I'm afraid." The bottom dropped out of my world. The phone call wasn't a denial. It was confirmation. "Connie," I said, taking a step toward her. "What are you doing?" She backed away, still holding the phone. "He's getting worse," she whispered into it. "Please hurry." I stood frozen, watching her performance. The woman I'd shared a bed with for 7 years was creating fiction in real time, painting me as some kind of monster. "There's nothing to be afraid of," I said, spreading my hands. "I just asked a question." "Stay back," she warned, louder now, though I hadn't moved. "Don't touch me!" Less than 2 minutes later, blue lights washed across our front porch. I heard the crunch of boots on gravel, the slam of a car door, a hard knock on the door. "Sheriff's Department! Open up!" Connie rushed to let him in. Clay Maddox filled our doorway, all 6 feet of him clad in uniform, hand already resting on his belt. The smirk on his face vanished as soon as Connie turned back to look at him. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked, his concern as manufactured as her fear. "I'm fine now that you're here," she breathed. Clay stepped into my kitchen without waiting for an invitation. "Step outside, Everett." "It's my house," I answered, keeping my voice steady. "You step outside. This is a domestic call." "Based on what?" "Her statement." I laughed once, without humor. Her statement is a lie she practiced with you between motel sheets. Connie snapped. Don't you dare. Dare? I said. You made our kitchen a stage. I'm just reading your lines. Clay's jaw flexed. Turn around. No, I said. You don't get to break my marriage and my front door in the same night? Clay moved closer. I matched him. Connie raised her voice, tears appearing on command. Everett's unstable. He threw a plate. I pointed to the sink full of dishes, untouched. Which plate? He grabbed my wrist. I didn't fight him. I stared into his face. Clay, you sure you want your body cam turned off for this? His flicker of panic gave him away. It's on. It isn't. Because this isn't about safety. It's about you and your girlfriend cleaning up loose ends. He cuffed me anyway. He tried to pull me past the hall table. The recorder sat there, red light pulsing behind the fruit bowl. He didn't see it. Connie did. Her eyes snagged on it, then darted away. They hauled me to the porch. Neighbors peeked through blinds. I said nothing. The quiet was my shield. As the cruiser door opened, I caught Connie's triumphant glance through the screen door, a flash of victory she couldn't quite hide. The cruiser door slammed shut. The county holding room smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. I sat on a metal bench that had absorbed decades of misery, my back against cinder block walls painted institutional beige. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, one of them flickering in a rhythm that matched the pounding in my head. I'd spent the night with my thoughts churning like an engine with bad timing. The betrayal kept replaying. Connie's calculated phone call, Clay's smug arrival, the handcuffs biting into my wrists. What hurt most wasn't the shock, but the planning. This hadn't been a moment of weakness. It had been a campaign. The door clanged open, and a deputy I didn't recognize stood there with a clipboard. Harwick, he called, not meeting my eyes. You're clear. I followed him down a hallway to processing, where they returned my wallet, keys, and wedding band. I turned the gold ring over in my palm, remembering the day I'd slid it on Connie's finger. The engraving inside read, Forever starts today. Funny how forever turned out to be an expiration date, not a promise. Sign here, the desk officer said, pushing a form toward me. What are the charges? I asked. No charges filed, he answered, already looking past me to the next problem. I was halfway to the exit when a familiar voice stopped me. Harwick. Clay Maddox leaned against the wall, thumbs hooked in his belt like he owned the hallway. Sheriff, I said, voice flat. Let me make something clear, he said, stepping closer. You're walking out because there's no bruises, no evidence. That doesn't mean we're done. I met his gaze. Evidence works both ways, Clay. His eyes narrowed. Meaning? Meaning there's plenty you don't want found. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'll be following up. Count on it. Looking forward to it, I said, and pushed through the exit doors. The morning sunlight hit me like an accusation. I called my sister from the curb, and she picked me up in her 10-year-old Corolla, handing me a coffee that had gone cold. You okay? She asked, eyes forward on the road. No, I answered honestly, but I will be. At her house, an envelope waited on the kitchen counter. Inside was an emergency protective order signed by Judge Petty, a man I'd seen clapping Clay on the back at fundraisers. The order granted Connie exclusive use of our home, citing threats to safety and intimidation. My tools, the lifeblood of my business, were listed as disputed marital assets and frozen in place. I stood in my sister's driveway with that paper in my hand and that cold coffee in my stomach. The betrayal felt complete now. My home, my reputation, my workshop, all stripped away by a lie. When I was 16, my father's old Ford blew a head gasket on a back road. We were 10 miles from anywhere, in the rain. I remember him looking at the steaming engine and saying, Son, when something breaks this bad, you don't panic. You get methodical. Standing in that driveway, I got methodical. By noon, I'd purchased a new prepaid phone. By 2, I'd started a documentation journal. Dates, times, witnesses. By 4, I was pulling into Jorge Salinas' auto shop. Jorge and I went back 15 years. I'd apprenticed under him when I was just a kid who could tell a carburetor from a catalytic converter. His shop wasn't fancy, but it was honest, just like him. Hey, brother, he said when I walked in, wiping his hands on a rag. His eyes scanned my face. You look like hell warmed over. Feel worse, I admitted. He nodded toward a customer's car on the lift. Want to talk about it or want to work on it? Both, I said. While we replaced a timing belt, I laid out the whole story. Jorge listened, cursed in Spanish at the right moments, and offered me the space in the back to set up temporarily. "And one more thing," he said, sliding out from under the car. "I've got a buddy who can extract data from cloud backups. If Connie deleted messages she thought were gone. You think that's possible? You paid for the family cloud storage, right? For photos and backups?" I nodded. "Then there might be breadcrumbs, digital footprints." Jorge tapped his temple. "People think delete means gone. It doesn't. It just means invisible to most eyes." For the first time since those blue lights hit my porch, I felt something besides rage and helplessness. I felt possibility. Night settled over the shop. Jorge had gone home to his family, leaving me with a spare key in the back office to myself. I'd set up my old laptop on a workbench, transferring files to a flash drive, emails, bank statements, phone records, evidence. The new phone buzzed. A voicemail notification appeared on the screen. Unknown number. I pressed play and held it to my ear. A woman's voice, low and cautious. "This is Deputy Mara Holt. We should talk. Off duty." I parked my F-150 behind Loretta's Diner at 11:45 that night. The neon sign had been dark for hours, the parking lot empty except for a single car tucked beside the dumpsters, a blue Honda Civic with a dented rear bumper. Deputy Mara Holt sat behind the wheel, her silhouette barely visible in the darkness. I flashed my headlights once, then killed the engine. She emerged from her car, glancing nervously over both shoulders before sliding into my passenger seat. Up close, she looked exhausted, dark circles under alert eyes, hair pulled back so tight it had to hurt. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, voice low despite the empty lot. "Not like I've got a crowded social calendar right now," I replied. She didn't smile. "I can't be seen talking to you. If Maddox finds out—" "Why risk it then?" Her hands twisted around a metal thermos she'd brought. "Because what he's doing to you, he's done before. Just, usually to people with less resources, less fight." That settled between us for a moment. The implication that I might be the one who could finally push back. "How long have you known he's dirty?" I asked. Mara's gaze dropped to her thermos. "Since my second month on patrol. Cash from traffic stops going missing, calls getting rerouted, records altered after the fact." She looked up. "And the women. How many?" "At least 3 that I know of. He gets fixated, helps them with tickets, restraining orders against their exes or husbands. Then suddenly they're visiting the station at odd hours." I thought of Connie, how quickly she'd gotten that protective order, how easily Clay had walked into our house. "I need something solid," I said. Mara reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small black flash drive. "I made a copy of the dispatch audio from the night he arrested you. Listen to how he categorized the call." I plugged it into my truck's USB port. The audio crackled through my speakers, Clay's voice coming through clear as day. "Mark it a welfare check. We don't need a paper trail on this one." Dispatch responded. "Copy that. Welfare check at 1452 Cypress Lane." In the background, almost too faint to hear, was a woman's voice. Connie's voice. "Is he going to fight it?" I played it 3 more times, listening to that exchange cycle through my speakers like poison. "Why does the classification matter?" I asked. "Welfare checks don't require the same documentation as domestic calls," Mara explained. "No mandatory reports, no follow-up from social services. It's a way to make a house call without leaving much of a trail. Convenient. That's Maddox's specialty." She took a deep breath. "He's got half the county in his pocket. Judge Petty, the clerk's office, business owners who don't want their permits delayed. But he's sloppy. Thinks he's untouchable." I ejected the drive and closed my fist around it. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He'll come after you harder if he suspects you're building a case." She hesitated. "I can't do more than this. I've got a mom in assisted living and student loans. I need this job." "I understand. Be careful," she said, her hand on the door handle. "Maddox plays dirty, but he's sloppy. That's your advantage." After she left, I sat in the darkness, turning the flash drive over in my fingers. One piece of evidence. A start, but not enough. I remembered a name that had circulated in the shop a few years back when Jorge's cousin had trouble with a crooked building inspector, Shay McKenna, a civil attorney who'd built a reputation for dismantling corruption in small-town government. Word was she'd taken down a police chief 2 counties over for similar abuses. By morning, I was sitting in a modest office across from Shay herself, tall, composed, with dark hair pulled back and eyes that missed nothing. "So," she said after I'd laid out the whole story and played Mara's audio file. You've got a sheriff sleeping with your wife, manipulating calls, and a judge who's possibly in his pocket. That about covers it. She tapped her pen against her legal pad. We need more than this audio to make a case stick. We need patterns, records, witnesses. Deputy Holt won't go on record. Not yet, Shay agreed. But if we show this is bigger than just you, she might. People find courage in numbers. She jotted something down. I'll represent you. My retainer's reasonable, and we can discuss payment options. I appreciate that. First step is FOIA requests. All dispatch logs involving Sheriff Maddox for the past 6 months. We'll cross-reference with his duty logs, look for discrepancies. We need his body cam footage from that night, too. He turned it off. Then we need the record showing when it was turned off. Every gap creates questions. She looked up from her notes. This won't be quick or easy, Mr. Harwick. Are you committed? Completely. She nodded once, satisfied. Then we start today. On the drive back to Jorge's shop, I took a detour past my house. It was mid-afternoon, but the place sat dark and silent, except for the porch light, still burning despite the daylight. Connie always left it on when she expected me to be late. Now it felt like a warning. Stay away. I gripped the steering wheel tighter and whispered to myself, not for long. I rolled into Jorge's shop before sunrise the next morning, my truck bed loaded with banker's boxes. 2 weeks of digging had turned up more than I expected. You sleeping at all? Jorge asked, flipping on the fluorescent lights. The shop smelled of motor oil and metal, familiar scents that steadied me. Not much, I admitted, hauling the first box to his workbench. But neither are they. I spread everything across the scarred metal surface. Bank statements highlighted with Connie's withdrawals, printed motel receipts from the Cedar Pines Inn where a desk clerk remembered the sheriff's truck, phone records showing calls between Connie and Clay stretching back 6 months. Each piece alone meant nothing. Together they formed a picture that made my stomach turn. Jorge whistled low as he scanned the documents. Man, this is methodical, I offered, trying to keep my voice steady. I was going to say scary thorough. He gave me a sideways glance. You doing okay with all this? I paused, hands flat on the workbench. Was I okay? My wife and the county sheriff had conspired to throw me out of my own life. I'm focused, I finally said. Jorge nodded, understanding what I wasn't saying. He pulled up a stool and opened his laptop. I got into her iCloud backup, the one you paid for when you set up her phone. And? Messages, hundreds of them. She deleted them off her phone, but the cloud... He turned the screen toward me. They don't really disappear. I steeled myself before looking. The screen showed a text thread between Connie and a contact listed only as C. I recognized the pattern immediately. C for Clay, not Connie. My eyes caught fragments that burned themselves into memory. Miss you already. Can you get away tonight? He's making this harder than I thought. I need him out. That last one was dated 3 days before my arrest. I straightened up, feeling like I'd been punched. It was one thing to suspect, another to see the plot laid bare. You want me to print these? Jorge asked quietly. All of them, I said. And the metadata too. Dates, times, everything. The shop door opened with a chime, and Shay McKenna walked in carrying a leather portfolio and a travel mug. She wore a practical blazer over jeans, dressed to work, not impress. Good morning, she said, then stopped short when she saw the workbench. I see you've been busy. I made quick introductions. Jorge nodded respectfully and gestured to his laptop. I've recovered deleted texts from Mrs. Harwick's cloud backup. There's planning, explicit content, and discussion about getting Everett out of the way. Shay's eyebrows rose slightly, the only indication of surprise she allowed herself. She set her mug down and began systematically reviewing our evidence, occasionally making notes in her portfolio. The body cam records came through yesterday, she said, sliding a folder toward me. There are 17 instances in the past 4 months where Sheriff Maddox's camera supposedly malfunctioned. She tapped a highlighted spreadsheet. I've cross-referenced them with the dates and times of these text exchanges. 14 direct matches. Jorge let out a low whistle. That's not coincidence. It's pattern, Shay corrected. And patterns are what win cases. She picked up the protective order that had barred me from my home. This signature? Judge Petty. I nodded. County Circuit Court. I know him. He and Maddox play poker every Thursday at the Elks Lodge, along with half the county commissioners. She set the paper down with deliberate care. The legal term for that is improper judicial conduct. So, what's our next step? I asked. Shay straightened the edges of the papers, creating neat stacks. We take this to someone with bigger jurisdiction. The state attorney general has a regional office that handles law enforcement misconduct. Investigator Sharon Donovan. She's good, thorough, discreet, and completely immune to small-town politics. Will she listen? With evidence this organized? Absolutely. Shay gestured at our assembled documentation. But we need to appear professional, calm. Maddox is already trying to paint you as aggressive and unstable. We counteract that by being the opposite. Methodical, Jorge offered with a small smile in my direction. Exactly, Shay agreed. We build this case by the book, no shortcuts. We spent the rest of the day organizing everything into clear timelines and written statements. By sunset, my cramped handwriting filled a legal pad with dates and events, and Jorge had created digital backups of everything. I locked up the shop while Jorge headed home to his family. Standing in the parking lot, I pulled out my phone and dialed the number Shay had given me. Attorney General's Office, Investigations Division. A receptionist answered, "This is Everett Harwick. I'd like to schedule a meeting with Investigator Sharon Donovan later this week if possible." As I arranged the appointment, my eyes caught movement across the street. An unmarked cruiser idled under a streetlight, county-issue Ford, tinted windows. I recognized Clay's silhouette behind the wheel. Our eyes met across the distance. He didn't wave or nod, just watched. I finished my call without breaking his gaze. The cruiser pulled away slowly, headlights cutting through the gathering darkness. 3 days later, I sat stiffly in a straight-backed chair inside the regional attorney general's office. The conference room was windowless and dim, lit by recessed lighting that cast shadows beneath everyone's eyes. Shay sat beside me, her portfolio open, while Sharon Donovan faced us across a polished table. I'd expected someone imposing, but Investigator Donovan was compact and precise in her movements. Her dark eyes missed nothing. "Let's begin with the timeline," she said, voice neutral. I cleared my throat. About 4 months ago, I first noticed changes in my wife's behavior. Late nights, unexplained expenses, constant showers. The words sounded mechanical coming out of my mouth, like I was reading someone else's story. I found receipts from the Cedar Pines Inn matching dates when Sheriff Maddox's body cam mysteriously malfunctioned. Sharon's pen scratched across her notepad. "Continue." I walked her through the night of the arrest. Connie's staged phone call, Clay arriving without proper procedure, the way they'd manufactured a crisis. "And your audio recording?" Sharon asked. "On this drive." I slid it across the table. You can clearly hear Connie saying, "If he fights you, just do it." And later, "I can't do another week of this." Shay opened her portfolio. "We've also documented 17 instances where Sheriff Maddox's body cam was allegedly non-functional. 14 correspond directly with Mrs. Harwick's text messages arranging meetings." She handed over the spreadsheet. "There's also the matter of Judge Petty's signature on this protective order, issued without proper evidence and in clear violation of judicial ethics given his personal relationship with Maddox." Sharon took each document, examining them before placing them in separate folders. Her face revealed nothing, not skepticism, not belief. "The text messages are particularly concerning," Shay continued. "I need him out, sent 3 days before Mr. Harwick's arrest suggests premeditation." "And you obtained these messages how?" Sharon asked. "I maintained the cloud backup account that stored my wife's data," I said. "I've been paying for it since we got married. It was a joint account under my name. I have the receipts." Sharon nodded once. "Legally obtained, then." She continued reviewing our evidence in silence. I fought the urge to fill the quiet with more explanations. Shay had coached me well. Let the evidence speak. Don't get emotional. Finally, Sharon closed her folder. "I'm going to open a formal investigation." My shoulders loosened slightly. "But," she continued, "this will take time, potentially weeks, and absolute discretion from all parties." Her gaze hardened. "That means you don't discuss this with anyone. You don't confront Maddox or your wife. You don't post about it online. You live your life normally while we work." "I understand," I said. "Good." She stood, gathering the files. "Ms. McKenna, I'll be in touch about next steps. Mr. Harwick, try to stay below Sheriff Maddox's radar if possible." Back in the parking lot, the bright afternoon sun felt jarring after the dimness inside. I blinked, adjusting to the light. "That went well," Shay said, unlocking her car. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. I opened the text. "Let it go, Everett. You'll lose more than you think." I showed it to Shay. "Connie," I said. "Has to be." Shay took a photo of the text with her phone. "Evidence of intimidation. Don't respond." My phone rang immediately. "Jorge." "Everett," he said when I answered, his voice tight. "Two deputies just left my shop. Asked a lot of questions about whether we had unauthorized access to private data." My stomach clenched. "What did you tell them?" "That I fix cars, not computers. But they made it clear they'll be back with proper paperwork." He lowered his voice. "They're fishing for something, man." "I'm on my way," I said, but Shay shook her head sharply. "No," she said, taking the phone. "Jorge, this is Shay McKenna. Don't admit to anything, but don't lie either. If they return with a warrant, call me immediately." She handed the phone back. "You hearing this?" I asked him. "Yeah," Jorge sighed. "But hurry back anyway. I don't like how they were looking around." I ended the call, dread pooling in my gut. "They're getting nervous, moving faster than we expected." "It means we're on the right track," Shay said, getting into her car. "Hold steady, Everett. Don't give them any ammunition." "And if they manufacture it anyway?" Her eyes met mine through the open window. "Then we add that to the file, too." That night, I sat on the edge of the bed in my borrowed room at Jorge's place. The ceiling fan turned lazily overhead, stirring warm air. I slipped on headphones and pressed play on the audio file. Connie's voice filled my ears, the quiet conspirator's tone. "If he fights you, just do it." I rewound it. Listened again. "I can't do another week of this." Her voice had once been the sound of home to me. Now it was evidence. I stared at the ceiling, the fan's shadow spinning across white paint. "You won't get another chance," I whispered to the empty room. A week crawled by like a wounded animal. I spent my days at Jorge's shop, keeping my head down, fixing engines that made more sense than the justice system. Each night, I'd fall asleep to the same thought. Tomorrow might be the day. When Shay finally called, her voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. "We're on the docket. Emergency hearing tomorrow at 10. Judge Ellis, she's a visiting circuit judge, which works in our favor, not one of Clay's poker buddies." "You think we can win this?" I asked, wiping grease from my hands. "I think we can start winning," she replied. "Get some sleep. Wear your Navy suit." The county courthouse stood like it always had, limestone and columns, built to intimidate regular folks. I adjusted my tie in the reflection of the glass doors, remembering how Connie used to straighten it for me before we'd go to weddings or funerals. Those fingers that once fixed my collar had dialed the number that took away my freedom. When you're about to face someone who betrayed you, there's this hollow feeling in your chest, like something vital got scooped out and replaced with cold water. Shay met me on the steps, briefcase in hand. "Remember, let you do the talking," I finished. "I know." Inside courtroom 3, sunlight streaked through tall windows, painting bars across the wooden benches. The room wasn't full, but it wasn't empty either. A few reporters. A couple of courthouse regulars. And there, at the back, Sheriff Clay Maddox, arms folded, sunglasses hanging from his uniform pocket. Our eyes locked for a heartbeat before I turned away. Connie sat at the respondent's table, wearing a pale blue blouse I'd never seen before. Her attorney, balding, expensive suit, leaned over, whispering something that made her nod. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Ellis." The judge entered, mid-50s, silver hair, reading glasses that caught the light. He had the steady gaze of someone who'd seen every trick in the book. "Be seated. Harwick versus Harwick. Petition to vacate protective order and release of property hold." He looked over his glasses. "Let's get straight to it." Connie's attorney went first, painting me as volatile, unpredictable. "Mrs. Harwick lives in constant fear," he said, his hand resting dramatically on her shoulder. "The protective order provides the only security she has." On cue, Connie dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "I just want to feel safe," she said, her voice wavering perfectly. "Everett has changed. Become someone I don't recognize." I kept my face blank, though my jaw ached from clenching. Beside me, Shay made a single note on her legal pad. I caught a glimpse, rehearsed. When our turn came, Shay stood smoothly. "Your Honor, we have 2 exhibits that will illuminate the true nature of this situation." She handed documents to the bailiff, who passed them to the judge. "Exhibit A is an audio recording taken from Mr. Harwick's home on the night of the alleged incident." She nodded, and the court clerk pressed play. Connie's voice filled the courtroom. "If he fights you, just do it." I can't do another week of this. Clay's response. Keep it together. We're almost there. The color drained from Connie's face. Her attorney shifted uncomfortably. Exhibit B, Shay continued, is the dispatch log from that evening. You'll note Sheriff Maddox instructed dispatch to code it as a welfare check, not a domestic disturbance, despite what was reported to the court when seeking this order. Judge Ellis studied both exhibits, her expression darkening. She looked at Connie, then at me, then toward the back of the courtroom where Clay sat. Sheriff Maddox, she called out, are you present in an official capacity today? Clay stood. Just observing, Your Honor. I see. The judge removed her glasses. I've heard and seen enough. This protective order is vacated immediately. Mr. Harwick's property and residence are to be released from hold by end of business today. She leaned forward. And Mrs. Harwick, this court takes a very dim view of manufactured evidence and misrepresentation. Connie's attorney started to object, but Judge Ellis cut her off. We're done here. Next case. Outside, standing in sunshine that finally felt warm again, I took my first deep breath in weeks. The knot between my shoulders loosened just slightly. First round goes to us, Shay said, closing her briefcase. But stay alert. This isn't over. I nodded, pulling out my phone to text Jorge. Coming back tomorrow morning. We're back in business. Driving home that evening, I rolled down the windows. The scent of freshly cut grass filled the truck cab. My house, my actual house, waited just a few turns away. I'd have to change the locks, check for anything missing, but tonight, I'd sleep in my own bed. The flash of lights in my rearview mirror came suddenly. Not one cruiser, but two. I checked my speed, 5 under the limit. Turn signal working fine. I pulled over, heart rate climbing. These weren't Clay's usual deputies. Younger faces, harder eyes. License and registration, the first one said flatly when I lowered my window. I handed them over, keeping my movements slow and obvious. Something wrong, officer? He ignored the question, studying my license like it was written in a foreign language. The second deputy circled my truck, peering into the bed. Step out of the vehicle, please. May I ask why? Step out of the vehicle now, sir. I did, feet crunching on roadside gravel. The first deputy moved behind me. Everett Harwick, you're under arrest for evidence tampering. The handcuffs closed around my wrists with a familiar click. I stared straight ahead, jaw tightening as they recited my rights. I'd gotten familiar with this holding cell. Same flickering fluorescent light buzzing overhead like an angry wasp. Same bench with the tiny scratch marks from countless fingernails. Same smell of industrial cleaner barely covering something worse. The concrete walls held in cold like they were designed for it. A deputy I didn't recognize led Shay in. She waited until he was out of earshot before sitting down across from me. They're scrambling, she said without preamble, voice low. Evidence tampering? It's desperate. They know the AG has something. I leaned forward, elbows on knees. What exactly am I being charged with? Allegedly hacking into Connie's cloud storage and manipulating data. She shook her head. It's garbage. They're claiming you manufactured evidence about the affair. That's convenient. It's panic, Shay corrected. Clay knows the walls are closing in. This is his attempt to poison the well before the AG can act. She slid her business card across the table. The arraignment's tomorrow. Jorge's working on bail money. He shouldn't have to. He insisted. She tapped the table once. No outbursts in court, no statements to anyone but me. Keep the paper trail clean, Everett. That's what they're hunting for. Something to discredit you. After she left, I paced the small cell, counting steps to keep my mind occupied. 6 steps across, 5 steps deep. I'd made it to 300 total when they told me I had another visitor. Seeing Connie through the glass partition was like looking at a photograph of someone I used to know. Her hair was pulled back, makeup subtle, the courthouse version of herself. She picked up the phone on her side, and I did the same, pressing the record button as I brought it to my ear. You look terrible, she said, almost conversational. Prison chic, I replied flatly. What do you want, Connie? She leaned closer to the glass. I want to help you, Everett. This has gotten out of hand. The fluorescent light caught her wedding ring, still on her finger like a prop in a play. I remembered buying it, the way her eyes had lit up. That memory felt borrowed from someone else's life now. How exactly are you planning to help? I can talk to Clay, she said, lowering her voice. Get him to drop these charges. In exchange for? The house. Her eyes flickered down, then back up. Sign it over to me, clean break, and this all goes away. I almost laughed, The desperation was so naked now. So you can't get the house through the restraining order anymore, and this is Plan B? Don't be difficult. I'm trying to help you. No, Connie, you're trying to help yourself. I leaned forward. The AG has the dash cam footage. They have the dispatch logs. You and Clay are both going down for perjury at minimum. Her composure cracked just slightly. You're bluffing. Maybe. But are you willing to bet your freedom on it? She stared at me for a long moment, then stood up. I was trying to be reasonable. Now you'll see what happens when Clay really gets serious. There's a recorder on this phone, Connie, I said quietly. Every word, every offer to obstruct justice. Be smart about your next move. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. You always were so dramatic. I smiled for the first time in days. No, I'm patient. She hung up. I watched her walk away, shoulders rigid with anger or fear. Probably both. Jorge arrived that evening with Shay, posting bail with the deed to his shop as collateral. The night air felt electric against my skin as we walked to his truck. You didn't have to do that, I told him as we drove away from the jail. He shrugged, eyes on the road. Family doesn't leave family behind. We hadn't grown up together, shared no blood, but the word felt right. Family was what you built when the one you had failed you. That night, I slept on a cot in Jorge's office, a thin blanket pulled up to my chin. The anger that had been burning hot for weeks was cooling now, hardening into something more focused, more dangerous. Jorge brought coffee in the morning, sitting on the edge of his desk. You good? He asked. I took a sip, letting the bitter warmth ground me. They think they won, I said softly. They don't see the next move coming. Jorge nodded, understanding without needing details. Sometimes silence said more than words ever could. My phone buzzed on the makeshift nightstand. I picked it up, squinting at the screen. A text from Mara Holt flashed, "Recovered dashcam footage. He's done. Call Shay." The morning light streamed through the blinds of Shay McKenna's office, casting long shadows across the conference table where 3 cups of coffee steamed. I'd barely slept the night before. My mind kept replaying everything. The false arrest, Connie's smug visit, the protective order. But today felt different. Today, we had leverage. The dashcam footage is damning, Sharon Donovan said, sliding a tablet across the table. Clay's reflection in his own windshield shows he wasn't wearing his body cam during your arrest. Then there's this. She hit play. The cruiser's dashboard showed my house, but Clay wasn't inside managing a volatile situation like his report claimed. He was standing by his vehicle, talking to Connie on the porch. Her hand was on his arm, intimate. This contradicts their sworn statements, Shay said, her voice quiet but firm. But we need more than contradictions. We need confessions. Sharon nodded. The AG's office has authorized a one-party consent operation. You'll wear a wire, Mr. Harwick. A wire? I asked. Hidden microphone, she clarified. You'll be the consenting party. Everything they say to you will be admissible. We need them comfortable enough to talk, Shay added. Somewhere they think is safe, but we control. I thought for a moment. My sister's place. She has a detached garage with a side entrance. Private, but we can set it up however we need. Sharon's lips curved slightly. Perfect. Now we need bait. Connie's grandmother's locket, I said immediately. It's still at the house. She's been asking about it in her legal communications. That's good, Shay nodded. But we need more. Something that would make her bring Clay along. I remembered how Connie had tried to leverage the house. Money. She wants the house, but she'd settle for liquid assets. I'll suggest dividing our joint accounts, selling the boat. She'll think you're breaking, Sharon said with approval, and she'll want Clay there to intimidate you. We spent the next 2 hours crafting the message and planning the setup. My sister agreed immediately when I called, her voice tight with anger at what Connie and Clay had done. By noon, AG technicians were wiring the garage with hidden cameras and microphones. The message to Connie went through our attorney channels. I have your grandmother's locket. Want to discuss selling the boat and closing joint accounts. Let's meet at 417 Birch Lane, 3 p.m., side entrance to garage. No attorneys, just talk. She'll bring him, Shay said confidently as a technician taped a small microphone to my chest. And when she does, stay calm. Let them talk themselves into trouble. At 2:45, I sat at a small table in the garage, the locket gleaming under the single overhead light. Sharon and her team monitored from a van parked down the street. Shay waited silently behind a partition, out of sight, but within earshot. My palms were sweating, but my mind felt clear. At 3:07, I heard tires on gravel. 2 car doors slammed. I took a deep breath. The side door opened. Connie entered first, her eyes darting around the space before settling on me. Clay followed, taking position by the door like a bouncer, exactly as we'd predicted. "You're late," I said. Connie's gaze fixed on the locket. "Traffic." "Right." I gestured to the empty chair. "Have a seat." She sat cautiously while Clay remained standing, arms crossed. "What's this about, Everett?" "Closure," I said, pushing the locket toward her. "No catch." She didn't reach for it. "And the accounts?" "We can split them. The boat, too. I'm tired of fighting." Clay snorted. "Smart man, finally." I looked at him directly. "Just questions first. Did you coach your statement that night, Connie?" Her eyes narrowed. I told the truth. I slid a printout across the table, the transcript from my hidden recorder. "Read it." She glanced at it but didn't touch it. Her eyes flicked to Clay, who shrugged slightly. "You done?" Clay asked. "We're leaving." "Clay," I said evenly, "why did you tell Dispatch to mark it a welfare check?" A smirk crossed his face. "You don't even know what that means." "It means you were hiding paperwork." He took a step closer. "Here's what it means, Harwick. You think you can beat the badge? You're dreaming." I held my ground. "Connie, one last time. Did you lie under oath?" Something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe, or the recognition that she'd miscalculated. Her voice cracked slightly. "I didn't lie. I just helped the truth along." Clay cursed. "We're done." He grabbed Connie's arm. She yanked free. "Don't touch me," she snapped, more for pride than protection. The garage door began rolling up. Sunlight flooded in as agents poured through both entrances. Mara Holt was among them, her face set in grim satisfaction. Sharon Donovan stepped forward, badge extended. "Sheriff Clay Maddox, Constance Harwick, you're both under arrest," Sharon announced, her voice carrying clear authority. "Conspiracy to commit perjury, falsifying official reports, obstruction of justice, abuse of power under color of law." Connie's mouth opened and closed like she was drowning in air. Clay attempted one last play. "Sharon, we can talk this out." Sharon didn't blink. "We are talking, under oath." As an agent cuffed Clay, Connie turned to me, desperation in her eyes. "Everett, please, we can fix this." I made a mistake. I felt the old anger stir, but kept my voice level. "No, Connie, you made choices. You tried to erase me to make room for him. That's not a mistake. That's who you are." She reached toward me. I stepped back. The cuffs clicked shut around her wrists. 3 weeks after the arrests, I sat on a hard wooden bench in the courthouse corridor. The sentencing hearing for Clay was scheduled for 10 o'clock, Connie's for 2 that afternoon. I'd worn my good shirt, navy blue, ironed crisp that morning. Not for them. For me. Footsteps echoed down the marble hallway as Shay approached, carrying her usual leather portfolio. She sat beside me, her presence steady and grounding like always. "You ready?" she asked. I nodded. "Been ready since that night in my kitchen." We'd already witnessed the verdicts last week. Clay Maddox, guilty on all counts, obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, abuse of power under color of law. The jury had deliberated less than 4 hours. Connie's trial had been shorter. Her own words from the garage sting operation had done most of the prosecution's work. Guilty of perjury, filing false statements, conspiracy. The courtroom doors opened. I followed Shay inside, taking a seat in the second row. The room filled quickly. Seemed like half the county wanted to see the mighty sheriff fall. I recognized faces from town, mechanics from competing shops, even old Mrs. Henderson who'd watched from her window the night Clay dragged me out of my home. Judge Ellis entered and we rose. Unlike Petty, who'd quietly resigned amid a state ethics investigation, Ellis had earned her reputation for fairness. She'd presided over both trials with an even hand. "All rise." The Honorable Judge Rebecca Ellis presiding. Clay was led in through the side door, dressed in county orange that hung loose on his frame. 7 weeks of jail had hollowed his cheeks and dimmed that swagger. He didn't look around, didn't seek out sympathetic eyes. Maybe because he knew there weren't any. The proceedings moved with the formal rhythm of justice. Statements were read. The prosecutor outlined the extent of Clay's corruption, not just my case, but years of intimidation, selective enforcement, and favors traded for silence. When Judge Ellis asked if Clay wished to address the court, he stood slowly. "I served this county for 17 years, he said, voice rougher than I remembered. "I made mistakes, but I'm not the monster they're painting me as. Even now, no real remorse. just self-pity wrapped in justification. Judge Ellis's sentence came down hard. 8 years in state prison, forfeiture of pension, permanent loss of law enforcement credentials. As they led Clay out, his path took him directly past my seat. He paused, eyes finding mine. The hatred there was real, burning through whatever mask of authority he'd once worn. "You did this," he said, barely above a whisper. I met his gaze evenly. "No, Clay, you did this." I just refused to stay quiet. His jaw tightened. Then the deputy nudged him forward, and he was gone. The afternoon brought Connie's turn. She'd styled her hair, wore a modest dress, played every angle of contrition. The judge wasn't moved. 3 years probation, community service, and court-ordered restitution for every penny she'd withdrawn from our accounts, plus interest. "Mrs. Harwick," Judge Ellis said before closing, "you weaponized fear against a person who trusted you. That's a violation no sentence can fully address." Connie's eyes found mine across the courtroom. Whatever she was looking for, forgiveness, hatred, anything, I didn't offer it. Some connections, once severed, stay that way. Outside, as the sun tilted toward afternoon, Sharon Donovan approached me on the courthouse steps. "Mr. Harwick," she said, offering her hand, "your patience and courage made this possible. Most people would have given up." "Most people haven't had something worth fighting for," I replied. "Thank you for listening when it mattered." The air felt different somehow, cleaner, though nothing about it had changed. The same sky they'd tried to take from me still stretched overhead, wide and uncompromised. 3 days later, I stood on my repaired porch. Dawn was just breaking, painting the horizon in shades of amber and gold. The coffee in my mug steamed in the cool morning air. My shop was open again, customers slowly returning as word spread about what had really happened. I'd replaced the screen door, patched the hole in the kitchen wall where Clay had shoved me against it, replanted the flowers trampled that night. Not because I wanted to erase what happened, but because reclaiming space matters. From Jorge, I'd heard Connie now rented a small studio above the nail salon 2 towns over. She'd found work as a receptionist again, starting over. Her first restitution check had arrived yesterday, certified mail, no note enclosed, just money returning to where it belonged, like truth eventually does. I took another sip of coffee, watching the sun climb higher. "You don't need to shout to win," I said softly to the morning air. "You just need to stay standing." I turned and went inside, closing the door behind me. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.